Nothing made me happier than when we were in school and it was someone's birthday and they would either bring in Krispy Kremes or Munchkins, because that means we were eating donuts. Luckily for me and everyone else, Flexible Dieting Lifestyle has come out with a 26 calorie Munchkin that I knew I had to try. And even after my critical review of him in my last review, he still was friendly enough to send me cookie butters in the mail that I could try out myself and let you guys know how they are. So today, in the Anabolic Laboratory, we will be making Flexible Dieting Lifestyle's Munchkins two ways. One way with the cookie butter, one way without the cookie butter. My name is Nick. I have my master's in exercise physiology and I make anabolic recipes, and I'm also an online fitness coach and I review anything to do with the fitness industry. So if you're into those kind of things, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're ready to get showered in glazed donut holes, then let's get into it. As I said in the intro, we're going to make this two ways. First, we're going to make this the original way with the cookie butter, and then we're going to test it without the cookie butter. And he has a couple other substitutions that he says can transfer over one-to-one, and I want to see, does it taste the same? For this recipe, do you need the cookie butter, or is the cookie butter just an additive that you don't really need? We'll see. Now, this is for this recipe. It won't be for all recipes, but I'm very curious, and this is a great first test to see, is it worth getting the cookie butter or not? We're going to start with self-rising dough. I have never used self-rising dough before, or flour. I have used AP flour, and I have also used bread flour, as well as the 00 flour, but I've never used this one, so this should be interesting. For exact amounts, you gotta check out Zach's video. Zach works hard as hell on his recipes, and I respect the man a hell of a lot for his work ethic and just how much time and effort that he puts into his recipes. The next ingredient is a whey casein blend, and as you know from my protein bar review video, I am now affiliated with PE Science. If you just order PE Science in general, or if you wanna make this recipe and you're ordering PE Science for the first time, you can use code E4CM for 15% off. I will put it in the pinned comment and in the description below. And it really just helps support the channel, and their products are all high quality and are great. And be ready for a protein review coming up here soon as well. A little bit of taste testing of everything. It does call for maple glazed donut. One of the cookie butters that he gave me wasn't maple glazed donut, but he sent me a bunch and I have zero reason to complain. So again, look out for more reviews on the cookie butters, but frosted cinnamon roll, I mean, who doesn't want a frosted cinnamon roll munchkin? It sounds delicious. So I'm almost happy he doesn't have the maple glazed donut, because I have a taste for some cinnamon rolls this morning. Just for reference, if you wanted to use the cookie butter just for this recipe, which makes about 45 munchkins, which is a crap ton of munchkins, this has about 7 recipes worth. So if it's, I forgot if it's $20 for the cookie butter, that's about $2.50 per recipe. But if these munchkins come out and they taste just as good as munchkins, then I would say it's worth it. But I'm very curious to see the comparison between the non-cookie butter munchkins versus these ones. He calls for 10 grams of an artificial sweetener. This is not gonna matter as much if I put in a little bit extra. I don't know if he's talking about sucralose, which is a major sweetness difference between 1 packet of sucralose and 1 gram of Swerve. So I'm actually gonna put in 15 grams of Swerve. I have a sweet tooth anyway. If it's overly sweet, I'm not gonna complain. And then we have nutmeg. This is quite a bit of nutmeg, Zach, but I'll trust you and I will trust the process. If you guys have been following me on Instagram, you know that I've been trying again and again to perfect a pizza pot pie recipe that originated right here in Chicago, Illinois. So I've been making a lot of dough, and I've been making a lot of dough by hand. He calls for a food processor for this recipe. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to call out Oster here. I used it one time. It shorted out, makes no sense whatsoever. However, I do not recommend Oster food processors. For that reason, I'm going to be mixing this dough by hand. So I'm hoping it's not too tough of a time, but that is on me if it is. And you guys will learn from me and my dumb mistakes if that's a problem. Since he also says to make sure that you mix it so there's no clumps. I'm gonna put it through the sifter just in case, and then we should really have zero issue. Yeah, that coconut flour clumps up, so if you do this by hand, I would definitely make sure you sift it. It only takes a few seconds to sift and one extra dish. If you are doing this by hand, I like to use the dough scraper here to kind of clean off my hands a little bit. Our dough ball is all put together. Only took about 4 minutes to do by hand. Didn't take long at all. Yes, it's a little bit of a mess, but we're getting donut holes. It's worth every second. I'm gonna put this one in the fridge and we will make the other one really quick. The first major difference in this recipe is actually the first ingredient, which is the flour. He says you can use all-purpose flour with baking powder. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. And we're still gonna use our whey casein blend, but instead of any cookie butter, we're gonna use all whey casein blend. And then everything else is the same, so I'm going to sift it, do the same process, and mix it by hand, and I will tell you exactly how this one comes out versus the other one, but we'll see when we actually cook it here. I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, bye. This time I mixed it in with a spoon to start, and I really didn't do any hand work here until it was almost already mixed in. So this is a lot cleaner and easier way to do it. And I would say that you should start out with a spoon and use the spoon until you can't really do it anymore without using your hands. But you don't need a food processor to make this. I will tell you that right now. Second dough is done. This one took me 3.5 minutes for it all to come together. This is super easy, and I would highly recommend you are not discouraged by dough in general, and also from making this recipe just because you have to put together a dough. I've got my dough, I've got my non-stick surface. I also have cookie cutters from back in the day when I was trying to make donuts. I have a rolling pin, and I have a little bit of flour so it doesn't stick to the surface. I'm gonna go through, this is a very tedious process. I'm gonna go through all of these, and then I'm gonna go through the second batch and see how many I get, and we are going to start cooking. So I'm not gonna make you wait for all of that. I will see you guys back in a few minutes. Both sets of balls only took about 15 minutes to roll up. I got about 30 balls per recipe, but that all depends how thick you roll it. I probably rolled mine a little thicker than his. Even a little bit thicker will give you much less. But overall, he has all the macros and everything in his description, so you can check that out. But we're gonna cook these, only takes 5 minutes to cook. I'm gonna make our 2-ingredient glaze. I'm gonna glaze all these, and then we're going to get to the taste test, and I cannot wait. So I'll see you soon. I would have to say this is the hardest recipe I've ever made or reviewed to not try it beforehand. I'm dipping it in this hot icing that's dripping right off. It smells good, it's soft to the touch. It's like going to Krispy Kreme and they're on the hot rack and they're coming fresh off the rack. They hand one to you. Like, I'm not gonna just be like, oh yeah, I'll wait to eat it. Like, no, now. I did try the icing, but I did wait for the donuts. Couple things to touch on really quick. My donuts, or my air fryer should I say, only took 4 minutes to cook instead of 5. So that extra minute might burn your donuts if you put them in there too long. Secondly, I used 2% milk instead of almond milk. I needed to use about 10 to 15 more grams of 2% milk than almond milk. I'm guessing almond milk is a little thinner. However, just add a little bit in at a time and get your desired thickness. These ones, I almost used all of the glaze. He said you only used half of the glaze. I probably used 3/4 of the glaze versus him saying he used half. And then this one, I knew to make it a little bit thinner, so I used probably like 2/3 of the glaze, but I like mine a little bit thicker, a little bit more glaze on there. So make sure you account for this in your calories when you're all done. Everything is different. What it should make is 45 at 26 calories a piece. However, I got about 30 for each one, and this one was like 25 because I made the donut holes even bigger. So just make sure you account for the calories that you're eating. Regardless, I'm super excited to try this. And to be honest with you, I'm a little afraid because the ones that didn't have the cookie butter were actually like softer when they came out of the air fryer. So I'm wondering if the cookie butter is actually worse as far as like, not even flavor, as far as texture and softness and real dough consistency goes. So I'm gonna start with the one with the cookie butter. I will tell you what, if you don't like nutmeg, you probably won't like the donut. The nutmeg flavor is heavy. I remember when I would try to make a full batch of like real fried donuts, I would use 1 gram of nutmeg. I do like nutmeg, but it's definitely very apparent in this recipe. Donuts are very soft, chewy. Texture is more like, because dough and bread, but donut's not really bread. This is more like thick, like bread, rather than airy. I don't know, you know what inside of a donut looks like? It's more spread out, the dough. This is more like thick and crunched in. I'm very bad at describing, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when you bite into a piece of bread versus you bite into a donut. You could clearly tell the difference in texture and feel it in your mouth, for sure. The glaze is excellent. I love a nice thick glaze, and I would expect that too because this is regular powdered sugar. When you're not using that much, especially when you only use half the powdered sugar, to me, there's a trade-off. Would you rather have the extra calories and make it taste like legit glaze, or would you rather have the 7 or 8 out of 10 with the Swerve confectioner sugar glaze? And I've never used a Swerve confectioner sugar, but I'm just saying, would you rather have the real thing or the backup? It's up to you. And you would be using a lot of Swerve, so at that point, if you eat the whole batch, or you eat like 3/4 of the batch, that's a lot of Swerve in your system, where at that point you might get an upset stomach because we're talking like 50, 60, 70 grams of Swerve. Honestly, if I were you and you're gonna make this recipe, I would do like 1 gram of nutmeg. Some nutmeg is good, but it's so overpowering that it takes away from the cinnamon roll and from the vanilla flavored protein as well. Like I literally taste, the glaze hits me so good, and then nutmeg. All right, so this is the one with the all-purpose flour, the baking soda combined, and then all whey casein protein. Zach bro, I love you dude, but I only spit facts on this channel. This one, without the cookie butter, is so much softer. The texture is so much better. And the nutmeg isn't as strong, but I only think that's because you have the extra protein. So you have more vanilla flavoring that goes into it because you're using double the vanilla. I prefer the non-cookie butter recipe to the cookie butter recipe. I made a big one, let's see. Not done yet, figures. I really wish I would have bought Munchkins so I could have these side by side. I had them a couple months ago at the clinic, but the consistency of the all-purpose flour one with no cookie butter, pretty damn close. And the biggest difference is the whey casein. And that's why I'm so happy I partnered up with P Science, because the extra whey casein made it even more like fluffy and airy on the inside. It's not as thick and the texture is softer. Please note that this is only for one recipe. I have 5 cookie butters that I'm going to try, and that doesn't mean that just because the cookie butter didn't work better in this recipe that it won't in another one. But as far as this one goes, always gonna be honest on this channel. I'm always gonna keep it 100. I think that the substitutes ended up better because of the whey casein. Whey casein makes such a difference when you bake or air fry or any of that stuff. And I don't know, what the cookie butter would do, take away or add, or if it's just neutral, but the extra whey casein makes it even fluffier. So maybe with the cookie butter, a little bit less nutmeg and olive, or maybe like 3/4 of the whey casein protein, that it would be even fluffier. I'm sure he tested this a bunch of times, but that's just my theory in my head. And if it were me, what I would do next time if I wanted to try and incorporate the cookie butter, yet still keep this nice, fluffy, and airy, like a donut or a munchkin. You guys remember how much I loved Remington or Mason Woodruff's, however you want to say it, double chocolate donuts. Wow, this is excellent. Wow, straight up, if I didn't have my cheat meal, a burrito waiting for me right now, I think I'll stick to these. Wow. Flavor is my third one. Flavor's a 9 out of 10. I was blown away. I've grown a lot though since I had those. I still think that they were super good, but I've had so many anabolic foods now that it takes a lot more to get me to like the 9 out of 10s. These are like a 7.5 out of 10. Very good, but not at that point for me. These are like 8.2, 8.3. Extremely good, extremely soft, not as much nutmeg flavor. If I didn't have these, I would tell you I would make these again. But because of the fact that I made both of these to test them side by side, I wouldn't make these again, and I would make these again and pull back on the nutmeg and possibly add a little bit of cookie butter to give it that cinnamon glazed roll taste. Make sure you check out Flexible Dieting Lifestyle's channel. He is an absolute beast in the kitchen. And even though I picked one over the other, doesn't really matter. You should still check out his channel because there is so many other recipes that I'm going to try and want to put on the channel here as well, and has inspired me throughout my whole process. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. I'm gonna be coming out with more Flexible Dieting Lifestyle reviews, more PE Science reviews, and I have a pizza pot pie coming out in the next week or so. So until next time, I will see you in that next one. Deuces.